All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a very special Brian Morelli appreciation episode.
Oh, boy.
It's going to be a love fest, I already know. No, guys, super stoked for this one. Time to get back into the local band scene. Super excited for this one, for a band that's been blowing up for a long time in anticipation of their September 4th release of These Are Our Years, coming out. So excited for this full-length album. These guys just released a single that's just phenomenal. We'll get into that in a little bit. Guys, please welcome to the show, Brandon, Brian, Mark, and Frankie, Morningside Lane. Gentlemen, what's up? How are you?
What's going on, guys? I'm good, man. Thanks for having us.
Man, this is cool.
Yeah, no, it's an honor. Anytime Brian Morelli's on the show, it's an absolute rankings go way up. So I'm just kidding. Guys, thank you for a few minutes. Really appreciate you guys. Real quick, first and foremost, how's everyone making out in this bizarro 2020? Everyone staying healthy, family doing well? How's everyone doing?
We're doing good, man. It's like we're just sticking to the things that are making us happy right now, like, putting new music out and, just staying together as a band. So we're feeling pretty good, besides all the craziness that's been happening. But,
Yeah, it's crazy right now. And, I think I know the answer to this already. But, I know as a creative, as someone who does have a platform, as a performer, and I talk to a lot of artists, a lot of bands, a lot of wrestlers, a lot of talent. I feel like everyone just kind of feels like, especially at the beginning of this, like we all had to do something or say something, whether it be COVID, the Black Lives Matter, everything that's going on in the world right now. Did you guys kind of feel that pull and obligations as creatives and performers?
Yeah, whenever things get pretty heavy, it just kind of comes out, your beliefs and all that stuff. So at some point you have to say something, but, come to it, very, genuine. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and you guys absolutely have. Let's get a little shameless promo out of the way here. A couple days ago, I believe it was last Friday, you guys released Glass Skin. Love the tune, really, really good. I don't know. I feel like bands hate being compared to other bands, but I get a vibe for it, man. I feel like it had a very like U2 sound, but you guys also have you guys are definitely the definition of. I would put bands like you and Bobby Mahoney as like Jersey rock. Like you guys have that Jersey rock sound. Do you guys kind of get that vibe a lot? Like you are the epitome of that Jersey rock sound, first and foremost.
Yeah, I mean it's in our DNA, man. We're all from Jersey, So it's gonna come out of you no matter what. I feel, And these guys, they all like. We all grew up in Jersey. I mean, I grew up in North Jersey, and Frank, you grew up where?
In Central Jersey, so like around like Jackson area.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but you guys have this great sound. I've been lucky to see you guys play a couple times. I think actually the last show I was actually at before like the world shut down was Wonder Bar with Jersey Rock, the Rat. Shout out to Tom Hanley. You guys were phenomenal. Great set. Definitely caught my eye. Max and I ran on stage to say hi to Brian, and the security guy kicked us off. Nobody puts Max in the corner, but it was awesome to see you guys. Great set. What's kind of like your guys' philosophy when you go on stage? Some people like to just kind of crank them out. Some people like to really put on a show. Some people like to put out a message. What's your guys' kind of on stage philosophy?
I don't know. What do you think, Brandon? What do you
think? Guys, we could sum this up easily.
Yeah.
150.
Whenever we came up with this
150.
thing, when we came up with this thing, 150% we give. Every time we go out there, that's the goal. 100 is not enough. We've got to go past that.
The philosophy in that is 150 is basically all of yourself and another half. We're basically asking of each other to give all and a half when we're up there.
Yeah, and it's funny because it started when we first started that. It started we were saying, okay, we're gonna give it 110. Then the next show was 120. All right, it's gonna be 120. 130, 140, and then 150, and then boom, that's it. I think 150. That's where we.
Yeah, we're gonna all pass that if we go to 160.
Yeah, 160. I don't know. We might not go over too well. We might not get home.
No, but essentially, you guys are cranking it up to 11 is what you're doing. But no, you guys really always steal the show, and it's really good to see that. I can't wait to get back. I can't wait to get back on stage myself. I can't wait to hit that first cymbal, that first note. I think it's going to be awesome. Do you guys kind of think about that moment, that first time you step back on stage, plug in the amps, say the first word into the mic? Do you guys ever think about that?
Every day.
Do you think there's going to be an adjustment period coming out of it? First shows that will be played, it's going to be there's going to be something different in the air, I feel. But then over time, I just feel like that's going to wear off, and then we're going to be back to where we were, like show atmosphere.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was gonna say, guys, going back to the shameless promo, talking about glass skin, a little bit of a message there. As a drummer, I always feel like my part of the band, like, yeah, there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of passion in my playing, there's a lot of connection, like especially with the rhythm section. Like Max and I would always lock in, look at each other. You guys know about that. But as far as like the messages behind songs, and the writing and stuff like that, the lyrics, that to me, I was never like really good at deciphering that. I'm more mechanical, I guess. Tell us a little bit about like the story behind Glass Skin.
Well, I mean, me and Brian, I showed Brian the riff. That was probably the first person I showed, and it kind of just, it's a song. It is a song about liberation and realizing that you're coming out of a bad place and that you're entering this new world where you don't really know what's going to be happening, but you got to embrace it because you don't want to be stuck where you were. You know what I mean? So and the character, like I relate to the character in Glass Skin a lot because like that song made me realize that like, okay, things were changing. But like after I wrote the lyrics, I was like, oh wait, it's kind of getting better here. I was like, wow, because it's showing through the song and it's just kind of projecting through the song. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, that's interesting. A couple more leads. I know the lead singers always get like these deep questions. I got some band questions too. But as far as like the writing, you said in your quote for the press, and you also said right now, you said the character. I always like to ask bands this: does your writing come from like a place of real life, or does it come from like a fantasy world or another person or dreams or anything like that? Where does the writing come from?
It always comes from a personal place, but we're good at also talking about someone else because like I like talking about other people too because they are in your life too. You know what I mean? So like that's like the relationship you have with other people and putting yourself in someone else's shoes because there is an album, there's a song on the album that that totally goes into another person's shoes, but it all ties into what you're feeling at that moment. That's huge, and then you just kind of tie it and you relate it to other people's ambitions, I guess, and other people's lives from your standpoint, though.
I got you. Very well said. And like for the rest of you guys, like the writing process, does it usually start with like he was saying, a riff? Does it start with a riff, then the drums come in? Is it lyrics first, and we're gonna write a riff or a chord progression around these lyrics, or a feel? How does the writing process come when you guys are writing a new song for like this new album?
It's always every song's different. I never really find myself saying that like, okay, yeah, the lyrics start first and then the music comes first, like after. That never really happens. It all kind of it's always a different mix. It always happens differently. Sometimes the music comes first and then the lyrics come in like later, so it's always different. And I feel like that's like that's a huge role into songwriting too, just like the not knowing how you do it but you do it thing.
Yeah, but the process has always been usually that Mark comes in with a pretty full complete song and then kind of lets us add what we're going to add to it. He has in his head like a vision for where he wants the song to go, but he gives us the free reign to kind of put our flavor, our character into it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I'll tell you like a quick interesting thing. Like for my part, the bass part in Glass Skin, there's that like kind of mellow down part, and especially there's that riff in the intro that I play, and there's that riff, and I remember when that riff came to me from Braxton. It came from actually when I was teaching, because I'm, during the day I'm a teacher in Trenton. It came to me in my classroom. I was like teaching them, and for some reason that riff, the ba-da-da-da-da-dum, just like it came to me, and I had the kids like just practice for a second, and I took my phone and I just sung it into my phone for like the voice memos, and then during like after school, I went to my bass. I was like, I gotta figure this out. It just hit me. I sung it into my phone, and that was it.
That's awesome.
That's awesome to hear. And Brian, I'll throw it to you, man, because I feel like same brain. We're the backbone of the band. I mean, the drummers are the best. Let's be honest here.
Sure.
But do you feel like kind of that you have to stay like I guess like for me, like I'm in a hard rock band, or I was in a hard rock band. Like maybe I have to keep things a certain way, or do you ever feel like you have to break away from like a certain mold? Because like in this song, I loved what you were doing on the drums, man. It almost had like that disco dance beat, but like a slower vibe. I could like the hi-hat pop sounded so good. What's kind of like your philosophy going into these different songs for the album?
Oh yeah. From my world, I mean, writing drums for these songs is kind of a lot. It's similar to what Mark goes through. Every song is pretty much different. And what's very interesting about my role in the writing is Mark will give me an idea of what he's looking for percussion-wise. And not a knock at all. This is just how our dynamic is. Mark doesn't really talk drums. So he'll give me like a sonic idea, and then it's my interpretation. And we'll do trial and error until, the last song in the album is called In Our Prime. I didn't have the drum set for that song until we were in the studio. I wrote the drums and tracked them. We just had no idea what we wanted it to sound like. So we really are pretty meticulous. And Frankie and Brandon and myself, I mean, we all self-arrange rather well. So writing together it's pretty synergistic, I think.
Yeah,
that's definitely a great word.
And
that's awesome.
Like the thing is though with this album, like there's no there was no freewheeling in it. You know what I mean? There was no like there was nothing going on where like nothing was incomplete. Everything like we went into the studio, like we really fleshed out all those drum parts. Like recording those drum parts were really one of the most important days in the couple of days in the studio, because we changed almost 70% of the album when we went in there. All of a sudden, like they just started like ripping the songs apart. The producers, Tim and John from Lake House. All of a sudden, they kind of just ripped the guts out of the song, and then we just rebuilt it again. And that was something that I always wanted a producer to do. I was just like, oh my God, fine. They were like, do you mind if we do this? I'm like, please do it. Like just do whatever you want, and then we're gonna figure it out. And it all happened pretty fast, but it happened for the best, I feel.
That's awesome. And finding like a great producer is super important. You want them to know you. I've been lucky to work with someone who's seen us so many times, and that would know whatever band I was in at that time sound. And that's super important. You guys talked about the writing process. Talk to me a little bit about the recording for this full length album. And is this thing done yet? Is it like completed?
Yeah, it's done, man. We finished it in October of 2019, and we didn't. We started in June. We started June of 2019, and we kept. We would go in for 2 or 3 days, and then a few weeks would go by, go back in. A few weeks would go by, go back in. We kind of went through 2019, and we just kind of had these random dates, and we finished it. It's kind of a blur to me though, because it was just, I couldn't believe it was happening when the moment came. It was like, wow, we've been sitting on these songs for so long, and I'm like, actually, I don't remember a lot of it, but I know Brian, Frank, and Brendan remember a little bit more than I do. But if anybody wants to chime in on that.
Yeah, I mean, we finished. I didn't go in as many days as they did. I came in, I think, just one day and laid down a bunch of lead guitar tracks for this. So maybe Frank or Brian could speak more to that. But I love the fact, a lot of bands, they record and they're like, oh, we got to get this stuff out here as quickly as possible. It's done. And I really like the fact that we didn't do that. We sat on it. We kept it in the vault. And we were like, let's wait for the right time. Let's make sure we get the right promo for this and get it all ready to go before we put it out. And I think that's going to help us. It's going to benefit us that we did that.
Yeah,
I think it also really speaks to us too, because during the recording process, like Mark was saying, they really like dug in and took the guts out of a lot of these songs. And I know for me, I think the second day I was in the studio, I came into the studio after work, and both Brian and Mark were there, and they were recording a song, and they know exactly what I'm talking about. There was this one song that we knew, we probably already played it live 2 or 3 times, and then I came in, and they were like, look, this song, I don't want to give it away, but this song has changed. So I was like, all right. So when they played it, what they were starting, I was like, it didn't even sound like the song anymore. So I think the biggest obstacle that we had to do was, as the songs were changing in the studio, we were playing a lot of shows. So to make sure that, we were learning that on the fly as the songs were changing, we were changing with them as we were doing the live shows those like same weeks. And it gelled so quick with that, like the new arrangements that, I think we thought maybe it would take a little bit for, to get those down, how we were doing them in the studio, but it just clicked.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember I'm sorry, who's going in there?
No. You first.
Yeah, I remember we went in there, we kind of had these songs, we thought we had them done, and we were just like, oh, they're going to love them. We're just going to record this thing, lay them down. And we were, we had everything dialed to 11. And so John and Tim were like, listen, well, they went in, they did something to my amp. They took all the drive off my amp, and then they just threw on, they were like, all right, put that delay in. And like Tim like just went, he kind of like was like messing with the knob, and then he found, and it just happened. And we like the whole thing, the guitars are really clean on that album. Everything is, it's a very crisp, clean sounding album. And, they took out a lot of, because everything was just so, overbearing and distortion and gain, and like they just took that off, and we were like, whoa, okay, we never worked like this before. So it was definitely an eye opener as a musician to learn and to adapt to that style of playing.
Yeah, it was an amazing process seeing your own songs that you think you're tight on get rearranged, and your own ideas and arrangements get challenged by somebody who is credible. And so I shared Mark's enthusiasm, but I was actually kind of nervous about that because Frankie and Brandon were actually pretty new in the band at the time of us recording. And on that day, that one story that Frankie's talking about, I was so nervous. I was like, holy crap, they're going to quit. We're going to lose these guys. They're going to hate it. All their investment's going to be gone, and but no, thankfully they stuck around. They believed in the product, and a good amount of this process was learning to just kind of let go of what it's going to be and let the course take its own way, kind of.
Yeah, trust the process. That's what I like to say a lot. So
love it. That's really interesting. I love like having these band-to-band chats or musician-to-musician chats. Something that you guys kind of talked about. You talked about like playing these songs live and recording and all that. I know for me, like in being in band since I was 16 years old, I think sometimes when the record comes out and you listen to the record, do you ever feel that you play like the songs differently after the record comes out, or is that just me?
Yeah, because the songs are always evolving, no matter what. They start evolving over time, and you start, and that comes with more experience, just getting better as a musician, and just turning into just kind of progressing as a musician. So I feel that always changes, but it's always for the better, because that's what you are at that moment, and that always comes across as genuine. And once it comes off genuine, everybody gravitates towards that.
Yeah, and I think that what Mark does really, really well is like when we go to rehearsal, we'll have our how we play the song, and we have the blueprint of everything, and our parts are nailed down, and then he's really, really good at figuring out like, okay, we're gonna do like band intros maybe here, or doing this, and we all have that input. Like that's how the song like evolves. We get like little jams here and there with different songs, and we all kind of pick different. I mean, Mark usually has a really good idea of where he wants different band intros and transitions, but I think the songs are always evolving in terms of the live show and interacting with the crowd, and those like band intros, the thing where Mark kind of lets us just kind of do our thing as he's interacting. That's all part of the evolving process when you're playing live.
Yeah, live is a totally different thing, because we had one of our older songs. I remember I called out for it one time at a show. We didn't really touch it. Like it was unrehearsed for a while, but it was easy enough where we could put it out and get it going. And then so that happened. All of a sudden, this middle just kind of progressed through the live show, and then now we just keep it that way now. So it's like the live show evolved those songs too.
Yeah, I got you. And it's interesting. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just gonna say,
for me, it was interesting because I've always felt that about albums. Like that it's really hard to capture the energy of your live show in the studio because there's no crowd. And I've always, when people have listened to my stuff, I'm like, oh, just come see my band live, come see this live, and it'll be very different. But this is the first time I've actually felt like the album captures the energy that we have when we play. Like when I hear this single back, I'm like, that's us, man. We're that powerful live too, So it's really hard to do that, and for whatever reason, we captured that. So,
and actually, the Glass Skin is the only song that they did not touch. Like that Lake House was like, actually, no, that's fine. They're like, you're good. We're like,
wow.
Oh, okay, nice.
That's interesting. It's really interesting to me that, correct me if I'm wrong, you said you guys finished this album in October of 2019. Is that what you were saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
So mad respect to you guys. I mean, I've been in a lot of projects, where, like the planning and the execution's all over the place. Usually you do have the album done, but now it's like, all right, we got to find the album art, or we got to, get a picture to this thing. We got to plan a release show and all this kind of stuff. And usually when you're done, you got to, do all this stuff, or you're doing it while you're recording. And then, after that release show, like what's the next step? I've been in bands where it's like, all right, we have the release show. Now someone's doing their own thing. It's just like, there's no plan. So to me, it's very interesting to me that you guys, for essentially 8 months, have sat on this thing, man. That's actually super interesting to me. I think that's really cool. What's the mindset, and why did you guys decide to put Glass Skin out now?
Just when we got it done, we kept going back and forth about like when we want to put it out, and it just didn't feel right yet. We were just like, it just doesn't feel right to put it out yet. Let's wait. Let's sit on it a little bit. Let's get a plan together. And these guys, man, when it comes to planning, these are the guys, man. These are the guys for that. Like, I would have never been able to like even get the single out, but just kind of in my own head. It wouldn't have been the same without these guys. So that's for sure.
I think also like a big thing is we knew that we weren't going to release it right away. Like I think we all knew that, like right when we were done recording, we knew it wasn't going to be like, all right, next week we're putting it out. We kind of had 2020 on the radar of when to release it. And then this, with the quarantine happened, that threw a big obstacle our way, because now we needed to figure out, all right, when is now the best time to do it? When is this going to be over, for us to release something? And then when we decided to do, Glass Skin for the June release, we really just sat down, and I think we really learned a lot about ourselves. We play really well on the stage, but I think we learned a lot about ourselves off the stage through this quarantine, because we had Zoom meetings every week planning like what we're going to do. Every person had a different job, who was working on the release, who was working on submitting it, who was working on, any kind of press, who was working on social media. We all had our different jobs, and every single week we were meeting, and we really learned about ourselves, how to work together off the stage, as just getting to the point where we knew how well we worked on the stage together.
Yeah, and I think the timing too. We kind of always thought this song was a summer roll down the windows kind of song, and the timing just happened to work out where it seems like, well, things are starting to open up now slowly, and seems like maybe this is starting to get behind us a little bit. Maybe people need this, nice anthem-y rock song to get them back on their feet. We just felt like now's the time. Like we all felt that.
And that's a big thing with us. It's all about the feel to us. We were actually just talking about that before today on the chat. We were talking about how we don't like to do anything that doesn't feel right. So we always go with the vibe and how going with our gut. And that's something that's really important to me.
I like that. That's interesting to me. And I get what you guys are saying. Like, now is the time. It's all about silver linings these days. Like I said in the article, like it really is all about silver linings. Check it out on popbreak.com. It's interesting to me. So much great music has come out of this quarantine, there's an artist, Kathleen L. She's doing live stream. She's going on 100 nights in a row right now. She's fantastic. My buddy Eddie Souls, he sat with me on this couch, man, writing a song, and I said, bro, you should go finish that. He sent it to me a couple days ago. This was before the quarantine, and now he sent it to me a couple days ago. I said, bro, this is the best song you have ever written, and I've known him since he was, 15, 16 years old. So it's the one thing coming out of this is all this great music. Do you guys feel like this is your best stuff yet?
Well, this current album, yeah, for sure, 100%. It just felt so good and so fresh, and just everything that it embodies. You know, it's like it was the perfect time to put this out. I feel, because just what it represents, what it makes you feel, how it makes you think. So I'm really, really happy about this album, because the writing process took a long time. You know, me and Brian, and then later Frank and Brendan, and we grinded, man. We really did, and we learned something from it. That's something that I always like to bring up. We learned how to be a band with this album.
Wow. Beautifully said. That's really well said. And September 4th, I believe, is the date for the album release. What's the idea? You guys essentially waited a year. I mean, by that point, you have my respect. That's really cool. It's calculated. I really respect that. That's cool. Do you guys feel that like maybe the world will be open by then? Is that kind of the plan, maybe to have a CD release show? I mean, we don't have the answers, or does it have nothing to do with that?
No, I just wanted to drop it on my ex's birthday.
Love this guy.
Sorry, Marissa.
That is awesome.
Wow.
I'm getting a phone call later.
No, I mean, we definitely talked about it. That was definitely in our thoughts, that maybe by September, maybe shows can start coming back in some form. So we figured that would be good. And even if it doesn't, I think it just made sense to us that, that this is the time. And we didn't want to wait on it too long either. So I think it was like a good medium,
Definitely.
Absolutely. Now to get to some of these cliche questions that we'll get out of the way real quick. Tell us a little bit about the origin story of the band. Was there a toxic waste spill and it all spilled on you guys and you had your music powers combined, or how did this all happen?
Me and Brian got together in 2017, right? Me and Brian were together in 2017, and we just we were just playing. I was showing him these songs, and we went through a couple of band lineups where it didn't really pan out. It didn't feel good. That's the thing. I like to bring up that word, the feel. Didn't feel right. So I kept telling him, listen, you get back what you put out. So let's just keep putting ourselves out there. Let's keep. See, that goes back to Glass Skin. There's a lyric, I know how hard it is to throw yourself back in. We kept throwing ourselves out there. We kept putting ourselves, feelings and heart on the line, and regardless of how it made us feel if it didn't work out. But it did work out. So you get rewarded on like how much faith you put on something. If you really feel that you have something to say, people will come along and for that ride, I feel.
It's also super weird how like everything just clicked, right from the get-go. I mean, I joined in March, the end of March last year, and it really started from I put an ad out on Facebook saying that I wanted to, I'm a bass player and I want to, play shows, because I was doing mixing and audio engineering for probably a year. And then I wanted to get back into playing shows. And the day that I put that ad out, I got a friend request from Mark. And then we just started talking. And then that was kind of that. And then I knew Brandon because I worked with him a couple years back. And I knew what a monster guitar player he was. So we actually had 2 shows coming up. And it was right when I met Mark, I had a couple rehearsals. In like a month or so, or a month and a half, we had 2 gigs that lined up. So we, needed to see if we had a lead guitar player. So I recommended Brian, and I knew how much Brandon does Brandon does a bunch of stuff. He does, at the time, he always plays gigs, and he's he's such a good guitar player. Everyone wants to play with Brandon. So I told Mark, I was like, look, he does a lot of stuff. He's, liked and known, all over. So I don't know if we'd be able to get him, but I could reach out to him. But that would be crazy if he would be willing to do that or if he's free. And it just ended up, it went from filling in for those 2 gigs. And I mean, that was it.
And it's funny because when he told me his name, when Frank texted me, he texted me his Instagram, and I was looking at it, and I was at a red light. So then all of a sudden I see his name. I'm like, okay, Brendan Broderick. Then all of a sudden I look up and I see his name. I see his name in a billboard. And I'm like, Frank, is that him? I'm like, what's going on here? So I literally took it as a sign. So I was like, I think we're good, bro. I think he's in.
Wow. I'm feeling the band love already with you guys, which is great. You guys have that chemistry on stage. Even though you guys are all apart, I see it right now. I think the best bands obviously have that chemistry. That communication is so key. You guys talk about having meetings every week. That's amazing. I think also the best bands have like varied influences. Not to be cliche, but like, what are some of your guys' influences individually? We'll start with Brian.
Yeah, man. I mean, all 4 of us are everywhere, but to my gosh, what am I not influenced by? My musical journey started basically with Motown and soul and R&B. Yeah, a lot of that came from like my dad. Both my parents are into classic rock, so I got a love early on from that. From there, I went into like the funk direction, which I have absolutely loved for a long time. And then I went the hard rock direction as well, where I really got into metal for a long time. I was influenced by that too. The most recent influence for the past almost decade is country and what's coming out of Nashville. And that kind of helped, it changed my playing style, honestly. There's a different way to approach a song with that sort of feel. And it's just a very feel-oriented way to interpret a song. And thankfully, I know that some of the other guys, Frankie and Brandon, share that vibe also. So we were able to develop a chemistry from there. But that's my history.
Let's go, Frank.
So for me, I grew up listening to country. I grew up on a farm in Millstone. Wow. I grew up listening to country, and then it was still very early that I still got into classic rock. I was always listening to Led Zeppelin and all that other stuff, and I became a big classic rock person. And then when I was 12, I heard Waiting by Green Day, and then my life was over. My life was over in terms of the music. In terms of music stuff, I was a Green Day fan, and I'm obsessed. But like, it's basically Green Day and Foreigner for me. If I have to choose two top bands that influence my life, but I really believe that you need to be as diverse as possible as a musician. I've played country stuff. I've done the hard rock stuff, but I think getting into this band made me a better musician. I'm speaking for myself, pulling from all the genres that I've played for made me a better musician, being able to join this band.
Absolutely. We'll throw it to Mark.
Well, I mean, I started the first artist that I really got into when I was a kid was this Italian singer that my father turned me on to. And that was the first,
Wow.
No, I'm telling you, that was the first music I ever heard. When I remember, I remember hearing it in the car as a kid. And then obviously, I got older. I got into, Bruce Saved My Life. And then, I'm also a very, very big Temptations fan. Very big fan. I like I said, I'm really big on the Motown stuff. I love the Motown stuff. I can't get enough of it. My friends hate me for it. And then I gotta say, like the '60s group, like the Animals. But I like. I'm also highly influenced on like what I'm listening to at the moment. To like as far as writing goes, I'm always finding new bands. Like I just recently got into the 1975, and I was like, how did I not find these guys before? And I'm going crazy on them lately. I'm also into a lot of the Killer stuff, U2. anything that really speaks to me, but those are the big ones, I guess.
Dig it. All right, let's warn the Ninja Turtles and throw it over to the Shredder. What do you got?
Look at you.
So I grew up kind of like always into lyrics and writing lyrics. I've been writing lyrics since probably I was like 12 or 13.
Oh, wow.
And so I always loved Bob Dylan and, all that folk stuff. Tom Waits and Springsteen and anything that had that real acoustic, heartfelt kind of vibe. So I come from that cut. And then because of that, I started getting into like the Grateful Dead. And then that burst me out into Americana. And then I started loving bluegrass. And then the whole jam band scene. I really love improv a lot. I come from that kind of world. So like I listen to tons of jazz and jazz saxophone players and try to emulate it on guitar a lot. And also, that whole jam world, like the Dead, Fish, Dave Matthews, all that stuff kind of came along with that. So I kind of have both, like the structured songwriter part of me and then the kind of improv, jazz, see where things go kind of part of me. And obviously as a guitar player, you always listen to the Shredders. So I've always loved Satriani and, Yngwie and, you get into that stuff. And then I started listening to tons of Nashville guitar players, like guys that probably people haven't really heard of, like Johnny Hyland and Brent Mason. Like these guys that literally like they're on like every Alan Jackson record, playing every guitar solo you could think of. Nobody knows who they are, but they're on like every single one, making a fortune, just shredding country licks. And so I started listening to them, and I can't get enough. And it's influenced my playing a lot.
That's great. So I like this guy. Anyone who can improv, man, you have my respect. I love that kind of stuff. All right, guys, here's the hard. I'm not a hard hitting question kind of guy, but here's the one I always like to throw at bands. You guys can keep it politically correct. You can be straight shooters here, however you guys want to take it, because everyone listens to this podcast. No, just kidding. You're pretending hypothetically we're not in this quarantine 2020 world shutdown. Pretend like we're business as usual here. What are kind of your thoughts on this Jersey rock scene? Is it oversaturated? Is it not about the pay to play? Any thoughts on the scene? You guys can keep it very real here, or keep it very politically correct, wherever you want to take it.
Well, the thing is, man, I come from all these guys, Brendan, Frank, and Brian. They're from South Jersey. I'm from North Jersey. So,
okay.
And I say that I'm not bragging about it. Don't worry. But I live in Fort Lee, and there is no venues down here. There's no venues. There's nowhere to play. South Jersey, the Jersey rock scene is, I feel, is that we have a gift. We have a platform, and they're not big on pay to play, which is awesome. So I really dig the Jersey rock scene. I mean, obviously, a scene can get oversaturated, but it's your job as a musician, and it's your job as a band to stand out.
Really well said.
Before I throw here,
go ahead. Go ahead, bro.
Really quick, I think that it's Jersey, and Jersey people are quite different. And I think that I don't necessarily think it's oversaturated. I think there's a bunch of amazing musicians out there, and there's a bunch of amazing bands out there. But I think it's Jersey. So like if they like you, you're going to be recognized. And I think it goes a long way. Like at least in my experience living in Jersey, word of mouth still one of the biggest things. Especially in the Jersey Shore area, people talk. So if they like you, they start talking about you. But just like Mark said, you got to figure out how to stand out.
Yeah.
Other gentlemen, any thoughts on the scene?
I think, and actually on my last appearance with you is, I probably would have said that it is oversaturated, and maybe I still can. But I've learned something else since then, because I joined up with these guys, and you do have to make yourself stand out. When there is so much talent, when there's a lot of great songwriting in one small area, you do have to make yourself stand out. And, one thing I tell the guys before we have shows or even rehearsals, when we're trying to really grind it out, is be undeniable. I mean, for lack of a better term, make sure whatever you're trying to do, whatever show you're crafting, make sure it is everything you believe it should be on stage, and you'll make an impression.
Yeah. It's tough in the rock scene in Jersey. I mean, it is. I feel like Jersey as a state, as a whole, has not embraced rock for a while. It just seems to be kind of like it's just such a weird state. You drive like 30 minutes north and everyone just listens to hip hop and electronica. And you drive 30 minutes south and it's like only country. It's just the strangest state where it's like 4 states in one and they're all like 20 minutes apart. So it's like, it's hard to find it, you know? I know Asbury is a very vibrant rock scene currently. It's probably the only one that I really am aware of that has any kind of scene. You know, and it's tough to break in because it can be very cliquey, you know. But I think, you know, if you're good enough and you work hard and you treat the people right in the scene and you stay humble, I think you'll get accepted into it. You know, and that's what we're trying to do. So
Awesome. Very well said. And I'll bring this up. Brian, I had asked you this, and this is something that you had said to me last time you were on the show, and it stuck with me, man. It really did. You had said, and I mentioned this a few times on the show, and I've lived it and I've learned from this. You had said in regards to the scene and the business and all that, it is who you know, but it's how you make those connections. It's getting to know those people. It's getting to make those connections. And I've learned that. I've lived that, man. And I appreciate you saying that. And I always think about that when I ask this question, man. So it's just really good advice for some really good dudes. And lastly, guys, I want to be respectful of your time. Real quick, what is the ultimate goal for Morningside Lane?
Well, the ultimate goal, hold on. Let me get out of the sun for this one. So, you know, we want to build. Basically, we want to build a following of people that just, you know, relate to our music, and our music finds a way into their hearts, basically, and they could call upon it whenever they're feeling not themselves, whenever they're feeling happy, whenever they're feeling sad, whenever they're feeling whatever. We want this album, we want our band to be their go-to.
Beautifully said. Anything else, gentlemen? He summed it up perfectly. Yeah. All right, guys. Let's get a little shameless promo out of the way, and we'll get out of here. We'll listen to some Glass Skin if that's okay with you guys. And real quick, let's get some shameless promo out of the way. Where can everyone follow on social media? Where can everyone look for the album? All that good stuff.
Well, Brian, you take this one.
Yeah, I mean, we're on pretty much every platform at Morningside Lane NJ. That's definitely Twitter. That's Instagram. That is Facebook.com/Morningside Lane NJ. You'll find us. Album drops September 4th. It's called These Are Our Years. Our current single and our first together as this lineup of Morningside Lane is called Glass Skin. It's out right now on all platforms. That includes Spotify, Apple Music, and whatever else you want to use. Hell yeah. And y'all have
definitely the best person to do that.
You got a built-in drummer and promo, man. You can't beat that. All right, guys. Well, thank you again for a few minutes. Continued success moving forward, and guys, hopefully I'll see you on stage sometime soon. All the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Without further ado, this is Glass Skin by Morningside Lane. We're out. Peace.
You're the man.
I know how hard a heart that's bound to rip. Can break your glass skin. Bulletproof bones, while they're shaking me down, I'm gonna bleed it all out, 'cause it's so familiar to me now.